Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions on faith and life, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. Let's jump into today's question. Is sex before marriage wrong if a couple are engaged? If this is your question or you're in this situation, I totally understand. I get it in the sense that I know that that you want to do the right thing. You want to honor God, and yet at the same time, there's that a physical attraction. That's why you're engaged. That's why you want to get married. It's part of that. And there's that thought process that, well, we're on the way. What's the difference? And can I just suggest that perhaps if we take a step back from the question itself, and I think a general approach to moral issues is to never look for a loophole, to never look for exceptions in Scripture, but to look at what the Scripture says and then to stick with that. Because I think the moment we go looking for loopholes, for exceptions, for anything, we're really on thin ice. So let me preface my answer by first of all saying, what does the Scripture say about sex? And sex outside marriage? Well, first of all, it condemns adultery, sex between a person who's married and somebody else. For example, in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, it talks about giving honor to marriage and remaining faithful to one another, because God will severely judge those who are sexually immoral and commit adultery. So immorality is bracketed or is with adultery. Adultery is immoral. So clearly the Scriptures say that there are some boundaries around the way that we are to express ourselves sexually in terms of relationships. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to those who are not married. If this is your question, you might be thinking, well, we're engaged, so that doesn't fit with us, and you're right. However, 1 Corinthians 7, verse 2, let me bring it up on my screen. Here it says, because there's so much sexual immorality, and I think Paul was writing 2,000 years ago, but he could be writing today in terms of that statement. Each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. So really, if you step back from this passage, really to break it down, he's contrasting sex within marriage with sex outside of marriage, and he's describing sex outside of marriage as immoral. And it's almost like in the face of rampant immorality and the physical urges that we have to express ourselves in a sexual relationship with someone, that the cure is marriage. It's almost like he's prescribing marriage as a cure to that. In other words, it's natural to have these desires, and to not to suppress them, but to express them appropriately. Get married, because that's the cure. So you could say that the Bible draws very definite boundaries around sexual immorality. If it's outside of the marriage relationship, it's condemned. Why? Because Scripture is very clear that sex is God's gift to a couple. It binds them together as they become one together in ways that nothing else can, and that's why it's reserved for marriage. There's something sacred about it. The Bible talks of it in terms of a one flesh relationship, and that the sanctity of that and the protection of that is a marriage, because that's such a powerful thing, and it's a good thing. We should never minimize it. I'm not saying it's bad. Sex is bad. There's nothing greater in many ways than to be able to express your love for your spouse in a physical relationship. But because of the power therein, God has said, I want it's best contained within the boundaries of marriage. So to answer your question, is sex before marriage wrong if a couple is engaged? Well, followers of Christ would say yes, it is. If you truly honor God and the person you're engaged to, then you'll wait until you're married, because of everything that sex is an expression of. It's not just a physical thing. It's the union of hearts and souls in profound ways. And the sanctity of it is preserved and upheld and beheld in life-giving ways within marriage. It's not a recreational thing. So yeah, that is an answer to your question. Yet the Bible would say that it's wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Why not express them in the comments below? But hey, if you've got questions on faith and life, jump over to slido.com, use the hashtag ALC dash 2024. I'd love to hear from you. But until next time, God bless.